need your assistance as we're now in this lame duck session of Congress. And I've been warning for weeks now that there was going to be a major threat to religious freedom, and there is. Democrat Senate Leader Chuck Schumer filed cloture on the so-called Respect for Marriage Act yesterday, and a vote will take place potentially tomorrow.
People want us to get things done, and I'm optimistic based on what I know and what our two lead senators know that we will get the votes to get this done, and it'll say to that Supreme Court, just like we want to say to them, get your hands off women's bodies. We want to say, figuratively, of course, we want to say to them, let people marry who they love, period.
Figuratively, of course, yeah. Well, that was Chuck Schumer last night on MSNBC. All right, the measure, as I said earlier, would take the court's redefinition of marriage, okay? Now, we still are in a minority of countries that have redefined marriage, and most that have redefined it did not have the courts do it. But the court redefined marriage, 5,000 years of human history. And this is in spite of the fact that a little over 24 states actually passed amendments to their state constitutions. Now, this will put it into federal law. Again, this is something Congress did not do with Roe v. Wade. And some might say, well, does it matter? No, it doesn't matter. If you don't care about religious freedom, if you don't care about the indoctrination of your children, it doesn't matter. If you do care about those things, it matters immensely. Here to discuss this with us is Travis Weber, Vice President of Policy and Government Affairs here at the Family Research Council. Travis, welcome back to Washington Watch.
Thank you.
All right, so this bill, they're just kind of saying, well, it's just status quo. It's just going to, do what the court already did. But it goes much further than that.
It does. Tony, as we've been discussing, the bill, by adding a private right of action, by solidifying a national public policy in favor of same-sex marriage, will supercharge the attacks and the marginalization, the oppression of people of faith who dissent from what this bill is saying. It's going to incentivize all sorts of religious liberty problems that will impact them. And this is to say nothing of the marginalization of parents speaking up against the effects of sexualization of children in schools. We've got two major areas here that people are not looking at, and it's sad to see that these areas are going to be impacted by this bill.
Well, you talk about parents' education. In the 7 years since Obergefell, that's where we've seen this acceleration of this whole sexual ideology that I just mentioned earlier. We're going to talk about in just a moment with Meg Kilgannon, where you've got pre-K having book reading list about transgenderism, all of these different terms that, quite frankly, most people didn't know. In fact, probably a lot of people still don't know. This is insanity, but it's being fueled. What's going to happen here, if this bill is signed into law, is that gives the left, those that are pushing this agenda, the ability to bludgeon anyone who stands in the way.
You absolutely would have that, and so we've heard claims about how religious freedom is fixed, and I'm looking at the bill right here, Tony. It does not fix religious freedom problems. It says that the solemnization and celebration of marriages in the context of religious organization shall be protected. Well, we're talking about everything else but that right. When it comes to religious freedom. So it doesn't fix religious freedom.
So, folks, when you call your senators or email them in the switchboard to the Capitol, and by the way, I know that they're hearing because we're getting that word. So please, if you've already called, call again, 202-224-3121. That's 202-224-3121. Or you can text the word duck to 67742, and you can join this lame duck effort. We'll have a link will be given to you, and you can email your senators. Again, the word duck, D-U-C-K, to 67742. Now, they're saying they fixed the religious freedom issue, as Travis just mentioned, but only that they won't force institutions to do same-sex weddings. They're not going to protect the worker who doesn't want to be forced to celebrate Gay Pride Month. Is not going to protect the parent who says, I do not want my children indoctrinated with this abominable information. And in fact, this will be a green light that will accelerate the persecution that we've seen in the last 7 years.
Yeah, Tony, it will. I think many may be saying, why are you guys talking about this? The court decided this. Our nation is marching towards a cliff, and this is an indication that we're going to speed up. And we're not going to be hyperventilating about this, but we need to be, so we are soberly warning people. This is a dangerous moment. And I think the Senate needs to understand that. They need to hear from people. We need to understand that we need to pray the folly is exposed, brought out. You hear the senators talking about this in news conferences. The folly of what is underneath this needs to be exposed.
This is an issue of biblical truth.
Yeah.
And this is at its very core. The institution of marriage was created by God in the Garden of Eden. It's the only thing that Adam and Eve left the garden with, besides the wool suits that God made for them, was marriage. And now this is 5,000 years of human history. And not to say that there hasn't been homosexuality before, but it's never been normalized and celebrated and forced upon a society.
We can't call marriage something that's not, and that's what we've been doing, and we're being blind to it. And that's a dangerous spot to be.
And the left is out in full force. Faithful America, which is a George Soros-funded group, sending out an alert today, telling people they need to contact their senators. In fact, they say the day after the election, Tony Perkins sent an email to supporters of his hate group, the Family Research Council, renaming the Disrespect for Marriage Act, calling it one of the most dangerous and egregious bills ever introduced into Congress. And you know what? I stand by those words.
Yeah.
It is.
We're just, Tony, we're just pointing out the truth. And people need to understand, we're calling it, this is a tragedy. We're brokenhearted about, we see the nation going. They're going to mock us calling attention to this, but our hearts are breaking for the people harmed by this, and we're marching into further harm.
And the children that will be misled and their lives destroyed as a result.
Ruined. Years of consequences, the result of teaching them these ideologies that our nation is about to cement here.